I don't like open world games. I find them bloated, boring, and just too common. You've got Horizon, open world dinosaurs, Ghost of Tsushima, open world samurai, Halo, open world Halo. None of these games are bad, but they're just a bit bland. Instead of immersing myself in these games, I find myself going from story beat to story beat until I occasionally find myself up against a wall that I'm assuming the developers created because they want me to explore the world. Instead of being compelled to explore, I feel forced into it, and no one is worse at this than Ubisoft. I don't think they've created a new game since like 2007.
Pick your poison. Open world guns, open world assassins, or open world hacker bro. Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of my favorite games of all time, and I don't even care about that open world. I put up with it so I can experience its amazing stories and characters. Of course, whenever you mention open world games, there's a short list that everyone seems to have, and near the top of many people's lists always seems to be Breath of the Wild, which admittedly does a lot to point open world games in the right direction, especially in its exploration and ability to inspire curiosity about what's around the corner. But for all the good it does, it fails to merge this goodness with good gameplay, not to mention the weapons breaking far too often, and several other smaller things that I don't really want to get into right now. After all, this is not a Breath of the Wild video. It seems like since around the time of Skyrim, video game companies have been trying desperately to recapture the magic it seems to have. However, they've been doing this without confronting the problems the game has. No one plays Skyrim for the gameplay or the main story because, quite frankly, those aspects of the game aren't that interesting. People play Skyrim because of everything that surrounds this stuff, not for it, but despite it. It's been, what, 11 years since Bethesda released the game? Isn't it about time to move the genre forward in ways other than locations and graphics? Enter FromSoft.
As you've probably gathered if you've watched my other videos, I'm more than a casual fan of the makers of Dark Souls. While I haven't beaten all their games, I always have a good time with them, and Bloodborne is a masterpiece in every aspect. In my mind, no game can surpass its qualities, only meet them. So keeping this in mind, of course I was excited for Elden. It's open world. I don't want to be hyperbolic and say my heart was broken or anything, because it's FromSoft after all, and I have a lot of faith in them. Many questions came to my mind about trend chasing and the overall quality of an open world game made by a studio that had never made one before, not to mention my general problems with this genre as a whole. And then news on the game went mostly dark, which was fine with me because I stayed away from details of the game even when they were revealed. Although this definitely did not ease my worries about the potential problems with the game.
Right before the game came out, it was revealed that it might not even run on my PC, which really did not help things. Then, reviews started coming in and there wasn't a single negative one to be found. 9s and 10s across the board, sitting at around 97 on Metacritic as of the time of this recording. While I'm not the biggest fan of numbered reviews, all the videos I watched were also very positive. Despite the potential that my PC might be too underpowered to run it, I picked it up the night it released. It turns out, no one's PC can run it. Many, including myself, are having way too much trouble with stuttery gameplay. This varies from fine to near unplayable in certain areas. While fixes have been promised and seem to be coming, this is still an unacceptable state for a AAA game to launch in, especially one as hard as this. Assuming these bugs are fixed, 40 some odd hours in, this is unquestionably the greatest open world game ever made.
Souls games have always lived and died on their combat. Being the primary way you interact with the world, it's kind of important. FromSoft have mostly succeeded here with flying colors, especially with Bloodborne. And while Elden Ring is no Bloodborne in this aspect, it's no more than a few pegs down from it.
Weapons feel appropriately weighty or light, depending on which you choose, and there are a lot to choose from. Of course, choice means nothing if the choices aren't good, but for the most part, from what I can tell, different types of weapons actually change the way you play. From axes to rapiers, and to many, many different types of swords. Not to mention the special weapons, ranged weapons, and magic. You can also imbue your weapons with special properties, dual wield, and use the new system Ash of War, which gives weapons even more attacks and abilities. All of this, and there's horse combat, which feels mostly good and sometimes even amazing when you're riding alongside a dragon in combat. If I'm missing any part of the combat, and I guarantee you that I am, let me know in the comments.
Most Souls games, Sekiro notwithstanding, have stories that are, let's say, in the background.
While seemingly interesting, for the most part, it's just not really obvious exactly what's going on in these games. This is actually great because you can focus on it if you want, or you can completely ignore it. It also creates a community to look for every detail in the lore, characters, and history. Elden Ring seems to be more overt, but it's definitely still somewhat subtle, at least compared to other titles, and at least where I am in the story. That being said, what I have gathered has definitely drawn me in, and I'm sure many a YouTube video will be made concerning the world of Elden Ring.
Like I said at the beginning of the video, as a general rule of thumb, I don't really like open world games. The primary reason being the worlds these games tout so much. There just isn't anything to do of substance in them. I can only take over so many bases in Far Cry before I get bored and quit. And I hit that number a long time ago. Even when the worlds are somewhat interesting, the way you interact with the worlds falls flat. Elden Ring is the exact opposite.
This game is absolutely massive. I legitimately cannot believe how big it is, and I look forward to seeing much more of it. Those moments of curiosity I spoke about in Breath of the Wild are absolutely everywhere. Multiple times an hour, I'll be flabbergasted by some new creature, weapon, boss, or simply a new view to behold. I've had more of these moments of awe in Elden Ring than maybe any other game, certainly more than any other open world game. The world doesn't only feel good to be in or learn about, but is likely one of the best looking games you or I will ever see. I don't know how many times I've ridden up to a hill only to be met by some gorgeous view. I never just stop and look at games, but I do at least once every time I play Elden Ring.
Look, I know this hasn't been the deepest analysis of Elden Ring, but if you care about video games as an art form, you should know. You need to play Elden Ring. I know it's hard. Believe me, I know. But you can overcome it. Hell, that's a part of it. I also know it's not running great right now, and that money can be tight. So if you need, wait. Wait for patches or wait for sales. I mean, I didn't even mention the bosses. Good luck, Breath of the Wild 2. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Have you played Elden Ring, or do you plan on it? And what do you think about open world games in general? Of course, make sure to like and subscribe. And that's gonna do it for this week's... You know what? One more thing.